All right, those glare a lot. All right, so earlier today I had made some guilt-free banana muffins, and I wanted to take you on a tour as to kind of how I made and came about with the idea for these muffins. So I was sitting at my computer doing work, and I was like, I need to get up and I need to move. I'm sitting on my computer right now. I have a gorgeous view, but sometimes you just need to move. I saw a recipe for some banana ice cream, and I was like, oh, that sounds good. I have some bananas that are on their way out. I will, I'll cut them up, like peel them, cut them up, and put them in a baggie, freeze them, so I can have banana ice cream when I'm in the mood. I went and looked, and instead of having just a couple bananas that were just a little too ripe, I had, how many did I have? 3, 4, 5. I had 7 bananas that I like to eat them really ripe, but my issue is when Hillary, my daughter, has them, she's not so great with not letting the dog get a hold of them and them not falling. So I'm gonna fix something here. So I was like, I've got to do something to make these even better. So what I did was I looked through my pantry, I looked through what ingredients I had, and decided to make some guilt-free banana muffins. So I'm going to take you guys on a tour of how I made my muffins. And I'm walking backwards. Here's my dog Turner, if you want to say hi. He sits outside of my office and watches me work. But okay, so I was in my pantry and I was like, what do I have? What can I use? So I looked up, and the biggest thing I noticed was we actually had some whole wheat flour. So I decided to grab that. So I grabbed my whole wheat flour, and you guys will learn as things came and went. I had some chocolate chips. So I wanted to go ahead and use chocolate chips. I also used some unsweetened dried coconut. And what else did I use in my pantry? Oh, I've got to move things out of the way. I had some walnuts that I thought about throwing in there, but honestly I filled my tins a little too tight, so I didn't get a chance to put almonds in there. But one of the base ingredients is coconut oil. We have this giant tub of coconut oil. It's like $10 at Sam's. So that's how we're able to use that. And then I'll set this down so I can move a little bit better and get it organized. Okay, then I used milk, baking soda, which I couldn't find the baking soda initially, and I asked my husband to bring me home a teaspoon of baking soda from work, and he thought I was absolutely crazy. Thank goodness I found it. I also used 2 eggs, pure maple syrup. I got this at a store we have pretty locally called Save-A-Lot, and normally I don't shop there, but I decided to go check it out to see what they had. And normally pure maple syrup is pretty expensive. I got this thing for $4, and it tastes pretty good. You know, typically I like to get local maple syrup because we live in an area where I can get local maple syrup. But we were out and girlfriend kept asking for waffles with maple syrup, so I had to get that for her. And then bringing you guys over here, I have good bananas, but I used 3 ripe bananas. I also used cinnamon. I get our cinnamon for $1 at our local 5 and dime store. So that's pretty nice, pretty cheap. Salt. Our salt we don't use a lot of it, but we buy it in bulk at Sam's because it's cheaper. Just regular sea salt. And then the creme de resistance, or however you say it, some clover honey. I don't get fancy schmancy honey just because I'm too cheap to do it. So what I did, I'll take you and all of my ingredients over to my little mixing station. I'm not going to make them again because we don't need that many muffins in our life. But what I did was I took my, and what you need to do as well is get your muffin tin and grease it. Turn your oven on to 375 and let it start to preheat, okay? So, once your oven is preheating, I took my whole wheat flour and I whisked it in with that, salt, cinnamon, and your baking soda, right? So you mix in all of your dry ingredients. You whisk them together, you're all nice and gentle with it. Remember, don't pack your flour, just lighten it up in there. And then what you're gonna do is take your, you whisk that together, set it aside, take your 3 bananas, and you're gonna mash them together. So they, I mean, it's like a chunky consistency, for lack of a better term, set that aside. Then you take your coconut oil, and you want your coconut oil to be liquid. So I measured out my coconut oil, and I stuck it in the microwave to melt it down. It didn't melt down entirely, but when you start stirring it together, it melts it down, like it melts in together. So you have that. You mix in that. You mix in your eggs. Your milk. We use just regular whole milk in our house because it's what Hillary likes. Then, okay, so I was originally going to use vanilla in the recipe, but we didn't have any vanilla. So I looked up a substitute for vanilla, and maple syrup is a substitute for vanilla. Originally, I was just going to use honey in my recipe as my sweetener, but what I did, so the recipe that I concocted, I wanted to use about 1/3 of a cup of honey. So since I knew I was going to be needing a little bit of maple syrup, and you could have used maple syrup or honey for your sweetener, but I like honey. So I took my 3/4 cup measuring cup, and I filled it about 3/4 of the way full. So 3/4 of the way of a 1/3 cup. And then the rest of the way, I poured in my maple syrup. So of a 1/3 cup measuring cup, about 3/4 of that full was honey, and then the top layer was maple syrup. And I put that all together and mixed it up really, really well, then added in the banana. So it had like a chunky kind of consistency, but I mean, it's got bananas in it, so it's going to be a little bit chunky. Then what you want to do is whisk in your dry ingredients. You don't want to dump them all in. You want to slowly pour it in, whisk it all together, until everything is blended really well. You're going to have a chunky batter, of course, because your wet ingredients are a little chunky. So you mix it all together, and then you go over to your muffin tin, and I greased the heck out of them so they come up nice and easy, but I filled the muffin tins really close to 3/4 of the way full, simply because I didn't want to have to worry about baking another tin full of muffins. So I filled them really full, and then I sprinkled on a few of my chocolate chips, and I have organic semi-sweet chocolate chips. I'm not an organic person by any stretch of the imagination, but these were on sale. These were cheaper than even the house brand chocolate chips, so that's what I went with. They taste really good too. And then I took some of my unsweetened coconut that I have, and after I sprinkled on a few chocolate chips to each muffin, I sprinkled on a little bit of coconut. I like the crunch, the texture that they provide. So then you put it in your oven and you bake it. Originally I put it in for about 15 minutes. I pulled it out. The muffins were pretty done, but I didn't have any toothpicks, so I used a knife, and I tucked that knife in there. They came up just the slightest bit undercooked, so I put them in for another 5 minutes, pulled them out. They were perfect. They were absolutely perfect, and I greased them enough that I was able to take them out of the tin right away and let them start cooling. So I let them start cooling, and voila, you have these gorgeous, perfectly cooked, guilt-free banana muffins with a little extra sweetness from the chocolate chips, a little extra crunch from the coconut. They're perfect. What I am planning on doing is taking them. I was originally going to bake a loaf of bread, but I go a little heavy with my slices, so I decided if I did muffins that they would be perfectly portioned out. So I did muffins. I'm going to individually package them up. I'm going to freeze them so they're out of sight, out of mind, and then when I do decide that I want to eat them, I have to work for them. I have to warm them up, I have to work for them, versus if they were just sitting out in a container, I could come and I could eat one, and then a little while later I could come and I could eat another one, because moderation, right? So these run about 200 calories. Now, depending upon exactly what ingredients you use, exactly what toppings you put on there, it could be a little bit different, but for the most part around 200 calories. So pretty guilt-free, awesome little treat that's getting you some healthy fats. It's getting you some good carbs from the whole wheat flour. It is getting you some protein from the milk and the eggs, some fruit from the bananas. I feel good about it. This is also a treat that I feel good giving my daughters, so that's even better. But they're out of the way, not going to go overboard because they're going to be in the freezer before too long. So those are my guilt-free banana muffins. To get the exact amount of each ingredient used, check out my blog that is listed in the description. There's a direct link to the recipes, or to the recipe to show you exactly what you need to make the bananas on your own. So now I just want to know, who's going to try to make these muffins? Who has these ingredients in your house? Who is ready and excited to try something like this now? Because again, you can make it now and you can freeze it for later and have them for a couple weeks on hand. All right? Thanks, guys, and I will be talking to you soon.